Hey guys, Chad Hoover, KayakBassFishing TV, and today I'm going to talk to you about subscriber questions. So a couple days ago I did a live video and asked you to ask me the questions that you wanted me to answer. We're in a late summer into early fall transitional period right now, and it's one of the best times to fish, but also one of the most frustrating and maddening for some folks. So I went through and I found some of the questions. I'm going to answer those for you now on this week's subscriber questions. So Eric Nelson posted, "Hey Chad, how do you handle covering large bodies of water, finding schooling bass or good areas to focus on with a kayak? Assuming no electric motor, and I need some new winter swag for sure. Hashtag KBF beanie, KBF hoodie." Well, Eric, thanks for the question. And because we're featuring your question, we're gonna send you a KBF hoodie and a KBF beanie. Just email Christy. Her email address is linked up in the description box below, and we'll get that out to you. So here's how I go about breaking down a large body of water. I don't really like rules, right? But I use a kind of a generalized approach. You could call it a rule. It's the rule of thirds. I take a body of water and I divide it into thirds. I really refer to those thirds, at least in my own mind, as the upper, the middle, and the lower thirds of the reservoir, river, lake system, stream system, whatever it happens to be. And how I approach it varies on whether or not it's a natural lake, whether it's a man-made reservoir, it used to be a river system and it's dammed up into a lake, or what type of system it is. So if it is a lake, majority of the lakes in the US, especially in the southeast and most of the popular bass fishing areas, even in northern lakes, are dammed up sections of what used to be rivers, or as they say, in the beginning there were rivers. And so there's still a main river channel. There's still fish in there that migrate up and down that system. And so I generally decide based on seasonal progression, which will be another complete video, but I generally decide by dividing the body of water into thirds. Are the fish going to be in the upper third, the middle third, or the lower third? And so for fall, for this type, I'm gonna almost always default to mid-lake. And the reason being is, for whatever reason, there's generally more creeks feeding that area. There's generally more structural changes and things like that, because it's generally the core of where the people who planned the lake established it. And so there are some subtle differences. What I would say is mid-lake is what I generally relate to, but if you find that your lake has more cover or structural changes, offshore humps, points, feeder creeks and things like that in a different section, then you might want to start and focus on that. But I divide the lake into what I call the rule of thirds. So think of your lake as a circle and divide it into 3 pieces. Take that mid-lake part and then divide that in half and decide which half you're going to fish. After you decide which half you're going to fish based on seasonal progression, where there's more cover or targets or things that make the most sense, or maybe that side's the only side that you have access to, especially since you mentioned not having an electric motor and you don't have a lot of water to cover, then focus on that side. After you've used the rule of thirds to divide your body of water into that upper, middle, and lower, and you focused on the middle for this time of year, I'll do season-specific videos for when I focus on the upper part and when I focus on the lower part. But for now, we're going to talk about the middle, because it's late summer and early fall, and that's where I generally start. After you divide and decide on that middle third, divide that in half, and once you decide on that half, divide that in thirds. Use a 3-day approach to breaking that body of water down and going and checking. Like you're doing a milk run if you're fishing a tournament, going out and actually laying eyes on the area, paddling over the top of stuff with your depth finder, seeing what the water clarity is, seeing what the conditions are. Now, I will tell you this, in a lot of conditions, you may decide you're gonna fish the east side or the west side of a north-south lake in dividing your third into halves. And on your first day, you may decide that you're not gonna fish that side because you don't find any bait, you don't find any structural changes, you don't find any cover and things like that. And so on that first day, it's kind of the go, no-go day where I decide if that's the side I want to orient on. In the fall, a lot of times cooler air is coming in. So that wind-blown side is going to have that cooler air. The surface air is going to be cooler. It's going to blow that cool water to that side. That cooler water is heavier than the warm water. It's going to sink through the water column, and it's going to start to lower the water temperature on that side first. So if you have prevailing winds, I generally start on that side, the side that the bank that the wind is beating against. It's going to blow the bait up against that side. It's going to blow that cooler water up against that side. That's going to bring the bait fish in, and that's going to bring in the bass. Once I decide that for sure, once I've kind of locked in on that half of the part that I'm fishing, I'm gonna divide that into thirds, and I use a 3-day approach if I have 3 days. If I'm fishing a tournament, I do the best guess that I can. But if I'm just trying to learn a body of water, I divide it in thirds. And even if I find a lot of success on the first day, I still fish the other 2/3 because I want to be able to have a baseline for comparison. One of the things that I like to do is use a Navionics app or use Insights on my depth finder and set up an approach to being where I want to be in that place at a particular time. So let's just take that example and let's expound on it. Let's just say that the feeding time that day is at 10 o'clock in the morning, and some of my high percentage targets are right at the boat ramp or they're further from the boat ramp. I'm gonna set it up to where I can be in the right place at the right time, decide my launch time based around that. So if I'm going there and I plan to fish right around the boat ramp, I probably am not gonna go 2 or 3 hours ahead of time. I'm gonna go a little bit closer to the time that I plan to fish, and I'm gonna switch right into a power fishing presentation. I'm going to start covering water, you know, with that chatterbait, with that walk the dog style top water, with that, you know, particular type of bait. If I'm in open water, throwing that whopper plopper. But if I'm fishing vegetation, then I'm going to use the hollow body frog, like I talked about in my top 5 fall fishing lure videos in that 2-part series. So great question, but my simple answer to that is to divide your body of water, your lake, your river system, your reservoir, your impoundment, into thirds. Decide which thirds you're going to focus on, upper, middle, or lower, generally the middle this time of year, and then divide that middle in half and divide that half into thirds and give yourself 3 days to really dissect it. Now, it might not be 3 days, but if you spend more than 3 days between your days, then it's not the same. So you have to pretty much start over. If you've got 3 days in a row, that's great. If you've only got 2, divide it in half and do the best you can to cover it. And if you've only got 1, you're just going to have to guess. Do the best you can to use the resources that are available. But here's what I can tell you. If you use this approach, divide it in thirds, divide that half in half, and divide that half into thirds, on the times that you do that, you're gonna get a lot more experienced. You're gonna get more toe factor, time on the water, and you're gonna get better at picking the right half and the right third each time that you go out there, and you may be able to short circuit this process in the future. But since you're asking this question as a beginner, divide the lake into thirds, okay? Upper in the winter and the dog days of summer, mid lake in the transition in spring and fall, lower in the hot part of summer, and in the early transition from late spring into summer is when I'm going to be fishing that. So stay tuned for some videos very specifically nailing that down. I'm going to start taking a drone with me and popping it up where I'm fishing and kind of showing you the lay of the land on some of my upcoming fishing trips. I'm gonna hit the water hard this fall, bringing you guys some awesome videos, some awesome fishing action, and really having a conversation with you about what you should be thinking, doing the when, what, where, why, how, when it comes to deciding how to catch more fish. So great question, Eric, I appreciate it. Email Christy, like I said, her email address is gonna be in the description box below. Tell her that you want a hoodie and a beanie for asking this great question. We'll get that out to you as soon as we can. Listen, guys, I got a bunch of these videos coming your way. I hope you enjoy them. If you don't enjoy them and you don't like learning and you only like watching fish in action, I'm gonna have plenty of that as well. Give this video a big thumbs up if you like it. Leave a comment below. And if you're new to the channel, smash that subscribe button. Look around, click on a playlist and watch a few more of my videos. We really appreciate the support. Couldn't do this without you. Again, I'm Chad Hoover, Kayak Bass and TV. Thanks for tuning in to this episode. And Eric, thanks for the question.